there's no classy, there's no graceful way to do that when you come out of the intro music. So, hey everybody, I haven't done one of these in a long time. I am just getting over having been sick in the weekend, and it's kind of lingering. So I wanted to take some time to have a relaxed day. We can talk about what you want to talk about. I've got a couple of clips of things I want to talk about, but let's have this be your time to ask some questions. It has been, haven't done one of these since we were in California, so it's been at least 6 months, but I want to say it's probably been closer to 8, maybe 9. And it's something I want to start doing more often because you all seem to enjoy it a lot. And it is never a dull moment. So I appreciate all of you being here today. And I've got a couple of people helping out. We're going to post some questions on the screen. And let's start with a question from Kim Sue Teacher, who just became a channel member, which is fantastic. If you would like to become a channel member, I know if you watch my content at all, you hear me say it all the time. You can click the join button below this video, become a channel member for as little as $1.99 a month, or you can go over to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. Let's start with this question from Kim. I don't know if it's Sue or So Teacher. Hi, Jesse. You are an inspiration. Too kind. Thank you. You speak up openly and you've inspired me to start doing the same. Do you have any advice for how I can mentally/emotionally handle the hate and threats I anticipate? Well, emotionally and mentally, I think you can prepare yourself for the hate just by, and it's far easier said than done. Everyone around me is baffled by how shit doesn't bother me, whether it be comments about my weight or my dumb face or my stupid voice or my viewpoints. You have to be able to have it within you to just ignore it. Water off a duck's back, all of the sayings that you hear, again, easier said than done, but really you need to focus on putting it out of your mind. Now, as far as the threats are concerned, if you really do anticipate threats, physical threats, threats of violence, threats to your life, as do come my way quite often, I would tell you to get a good security system, a top-notch security system with cameras and a link straight to police. I have that. But prepare yourself for the possibility of that, because most of the threats I get are just idle nonsense from idiots. But there have been a few occasions in the course of the time that I've been doing this that we have had police in our living room to talk to them about serious, incredible threats of violence and, death threats. So I don't know what you're endeavoring to do, but good luck and stay the course. It's worth it in my estimation. Misty Key. Oh, became a YouTube member. Thank you so much. That is awesome. Fantastic. From Mary here, the noob subscriber here, question, do you think January 6th committee will ever hold Trump accountable? See, this is an interesting question that gets asked a lot by listeners and by audience members. And there is really nothing to hold Donald Trump accountable for relative to the January 6th committee. They don't have any prosecutorial power. The January 6th House Select Committee is a legislative body to investigate what took place, what precipitated, and what took place on January 6th in order that they can write legislation to prevent it from happening again and from buttressing the security setup of the United States Capitol, their workplace, to make sure that if it does happen again, they're more prepared than they were last time. So their job is really to gather information for a law writing perspective. Now, if they do forward on a criminal complaint to the Department of Justice and have a criminal referral, as it were, that would be up to the Department of Justice that does indeed, obviously, have prosecutorial power to hold Donald Trump criminally, legally responsible. Not just Trump, but the satellite of ding-dongs that orbit his giant, fat, greasy head and who are also in it up to their necks. So thank you, Mary, for the question. Appreciate it. Insane Atheist with the super chat. Thank you so much. Thoughts, deleting of Secret Service and DHS texts. So I am very distraught about the deleting of the text from the Secret Service, a time-honored, venerable organization through the annals of our history. And I am equally bothered by the involvement of the Department of Homeland Security, and now learning, I just did a video about it the other day, that didn't get enough traction, the topic itself, not the video, that the Pentagon, the United States military, individuals who work within the Department of Defense covered for deleted texts of Trump appointees. Now, all of this is very bad news because Donald Trump and his team and MAGA world, as much as they want to talk about a deep state, that is what this is about. It is about people who are working outside of the confines of the law within the government to protect insurrectionists, to protect treasonists, to protect traitors to our country. And if they are within the ranks of the military, they need to be rooted out post haste. They need to be gone. They need to be court-martialed. They need to be punished. They need to be held to account under whether it be the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is the set of rules that the military active and reservists have to abide by, or by United States Code, criminal code. So it is the most alarming aspect of this to date, I believe, as far as the cover-up is concerned. And I really hope that it's being looked into fervently and expeditiously. Thank you for the question. Arizona Sunflower, you're one of my favorite crusaders, Jesse. I feel so down about all the crapola that's going on. How do you do it? Well, I think it takes its toll. There are moments where there are days or several days that I have to take a break, get off Twitter. I've long kind of got off Facebook, but it can be overwhelming. And my wife is a licensed clinician, mental health professional, and I can tell you that there's a phrase about self-care, and you have to do that if you're going to be in this work, and not even in the work, but if you're interested at all and involved in politics at all, or even if you have a passion and a care for your country and the future for your relatives, your family, your children, your grandchildren, whoever you have in your life, if you're concerned about this country, it's going to take its toll. So I don't have a panacea. I don't have a magic wand. I don't have some kind of a Jack and the Beanstalk bean that I eat because it affects me just like it does everybody else. Probably no more, but certainly no less. And it's taking time for yourself. I think that's I don't know what my wife would say, but that's my stupid answer. Dr. 13. I think that's a Doctor Who. Is that the British? You don't know either? Okay. Hello, Jesse. I'm happy and proud to be one of the Kansas voters who voted no on the abortion ban. Well, that is awesome. It's one of the good pieces of news that we've seen come out of this entire dystopian ruling from the Supreme Court. That it's by them forcing it to the states. And look, there are still millions and millions and millions of women who are going to be living in what will end up being over the course of the next 60 to 90 days, the majority of American states that won't allow or stifle the right to abortion health care. But it is a good thing that a state like Kansas, we just talked about this yesterday on I Doubt It podcast, the podcast that I host with we'll just put it up since we're here and I'm testing out how to do all this stuff. Here we go. Yeah, look at that, right? Fantastic. We just talked about this on the I Doubt It podcast, that Kansas isn't like LA. Kansas isn't Washington, D.C. Kansas isn't New York City. Kansas isn't San Francisco. Kansas is Kansas. Kansas is the home of Bob Dole. Kansas is the home of many, many conservative people. And what I think this vote showed is two things. One, it mobilized Democratic voters who were resting on their laurels, so to speak, or to a degree, not as engaged in politics as they are now. And people are realizing what the intent of the Republican Party is, to drag us back in a regressive fashion to pre-1950. That's what they want, both race relations-wise and also women's rights. Just general human rights, they're not a fan unless you're a white dude who looks like me. So that's one thing. They've awoken an element of the Democratic Party, or at least liberals or liberally minded people. The other thing I think they've done is woken up to some degree Republicans who, maybe not publicly, but when they get behind that curtain, I don't know if they still have the curtains with voting booths, but metaphorically speaking, when they get to that voting booth and they pull that curtain and they're in private, they don't want the right to abortion health care to be gone. They realize just how important it is, and they remember what it was like. Many people remember what it was like pre-Roe and the dangers that were at hand and the misery and the atrocities that were met upon people who tried to get abortions and could not. So good for you. Thank you for doing your part. I would recommend that you get involved even further at the party level, at your local level, to try to encourage people to get involved. Jay Wilson became a channel member. That's awesome. Seriously, it makes me super, super happy. Carly R became a YouTube channel member. Awesome. Carly R, a regular listener to the podcast, by the way. I doubt it. Here, I'll take this off the screen since we're not continuing to talk about the show. Although, if you haven't subscribed to I Doubt It podcast with my dumb self and Brittney Page, you should. It's twice weekly. It's on iTunes and Google Play and Spotify, everywhere there's podcasts. You should check it out. It is a lot more, we'll put it this way. The YouTube channel is a lot more buttoned up, so to speak, no pun intended, than the podcast is. A super sticker, $5. Valerie Watkins, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. This is not whining, this is just fact. I was just reading an article the other day that with the economic downturn, that ad revenue, like we're seeing HBO is almost ready to fold. They're laying off a bunch of people and stopping production on a bunch of scripted shows. This is also affecting ad revenue, which is, you know, what we do here with YouTube. So all of this is very much appreciated. The Storm Virgil. Thoughts with the whole Alex Jones case and a little LOL. Well, we watched, my wife and I, Brittney and I watched a great deal. We were tracking with the tweets, the people who were live tweeting, who were there in the room, live tweeting what was taking place in the courtroom yesterday. And it got to the point, to the fever pitch where we had to turn to the live stream and actually watch what was taking place. And it is an amazing miscarriage and dereliction of duty, an abdication of your role as counsel to accidentally, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so I'm not going to assign any willful intent to this, but to forward the entire digital record of text messages for the past 2 years to opposing counsel is insane. In fact, I do have a clip here. If you got a few minutes with me, we'll watch it together. I'll still be on screen. If you haven't seen, I know you've probably seen the 2-minute clip on Twitter, but there was a lead up to it where they gently caressed Alex Jones into a slumber, and he had no idea what was getting ready to happen. And then they dropped the bomb on him that they had his text messages. That flummoxed him enough. And then they dropped on him that it was his own lawyers who accidentally sent it to him. And then not only did he find out that they accidentally sent it to him, they did nothing to try to preserve that as privileged communications. They could have gone to the judge and said, no, 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 that was an accident. He shouldn't have seen that. All of that is privileged. And they didn't even tell him about it. Let's watch this.
One of the things you talked about yesterday is you complied with discovery, right? You said that on the witness stand?
That's one of the things I talked about.
Okay. One of the things that you were ordered to do in this lawsuit, you were ordered to turn over any text messages mentioning Sandy Hook, right?
Yes.
And you didn't have any, right?
Not that we could find.
And you in fact told me in your testimony, sworn testimony before coming to this courtroom, you searched, right?
I did.
Okay.
That's a trap.
Do you remember, were you here for Mr. Schroeder's testimony?
Yes.
Okay. You remember when Owen said, the company has learned from its mistakes about Sandy Hook? You remember that?
I did hear him say that.
You agree with that?
Yeah, we certainly learned from our mistakes, got a lot better.
Okay. Mr. Jones, I'd like to show you what's been marked as plaintiff's exhibit 130.
Wait for this one.
You've got it upside down.
You've got it upside down.
That's text messages between you and Paul Watson, isn't it?
Yes.
And they mention Sandy Hook, don't they?
Yes.
Plaintiffs move 130 into evidence.
Any objection?
When the lawyers converse, he has to look at it and say whether he believes it or whether he objects to enter it into evidence. I'm sure he is
What's that?
pooping his lawyer pants right now because he knows what is taking place.
No objection.
Plaintiff's 130 is admitted.
Can you bring us 130 for me? Let's zoom in on the little article up in the corner, Melissa. I'm going to walk over to this to you so we can kind of point it. I know it's a little hard to read. You might be able to read it a little better on your screen. But this is a zoom of Mr. Watson has sent you a screenshot from Infowars.com, correct?
It appears to be.
Yeah, and it has an article here, right?
Yes.
And it says, staged. Video shows hospital using dummies in ER for coronavirus footage. Is that what it says?
I believe so.
Let's go to the first message from Mr. Watson. Read along with me, Mr. Jones. He says, this is a video.
Sorry, excuse me 1 second.
No problem. Take your time. You ready?
So I don't believe this is coincidence once. We'll stop this just for a second so I can talk a little bit and answer this question. I don't believe that this is coincidental or a real coughing fit. I believe he realizes what's happening and he is, Alex Jones is having a hard time. I know you don't think this is real. It's Alex Jones doing the same thing he does on his program, which is deflection and confusion and chaos. And he's injecting it into the court, which maybe it's like a nervous tick that gives him the time to think about what kind of a response he's going to have. But it went on and on and on. This question here, do I believe Alex Jones' lawyers releasing the text message to the Sandy Hook parents' lawyers was on purpose so he can get a mistrial? Clown for life, I guess is the name. I was going to say clone, but I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't put it past the legal stylings of Alex Jones' counsel, but they did try to do that today. They tried for a mistrial, and they were just summarily rejected out of hand. No, you don't get a mistrial. So who knows whether that was the intent? But the circus continues here with them. They got him to say he searched his phone personally. He said it under oath. He said there were no text messages. And then they present him with the text messages. And then we're getting ready to learn how the lawyer for the Sandy Hook parents have those text messages.
Yeah, you may not think it's a problem, but it's a real one.
Sure.
Just give me a second. All right, go ahead.
Mr. Watson says, this is a video of a medical student training to intubate. Makes us look ridiculous, suggesting this means COVID is fake. Sandy Hook all over again. I read that correctly?
Yes.
Go to the next message. What'd you tell Mr. Watson?
I get it.
Mr. Jones, it's true that this article is right now live on Infowars.com. I can pull it up, right?
I've never seen this text message. I guess you guys got Paul's. My phone didn't save them. So that's fine with me.
Your phone didn't save the second.
I told you guys I gave it to the lawyers who said that they drained the phone, they didn't find that stuff. I don't know how my phone's.
You gave it to the lawyers. They were supposed to find it. So that's what testimony is?
No, I searched it as well. I mean, so you guys have all this stuff and you say we didn't give anything. It's
Mr.
ridiculous.
Jones, you know how an iPhone works, right? You've had iPhone text messaging for several years now.
Yeah.
What does it mean if the messages are in blue? Whose
I don't-
messages are those? Whose phone is this taken from?
I don't know whose phone's taken from. I mean, I turned the phone over and said, take the stuff off.
Can I have you look in the very bottom below the very bottom left corner? Is that your phone number?
Yes. So you did get my text messages. And it said you didn't. Nice trick.
Yes, Mr. Jones.
Here we go.
Indeed. You didn't give this text message to me. You don't know where this came from. Do you know where I got this?
No.
Mr. Jones, did you know that 12 days ago, your attorneys messed up and sent me an entire digital copy of your entire cell phone with every text message you've sent for the past 2 years, and when informed, did not take any steps to identify it as privileged or protect it in any way. And as of 2 days ago, it fell free and clear into my possession. And that is how I know you lied to me when you said you didn't have text messages about Sandy Hook. Did you know that?
I told you the truth. This is your Perry Mason moment. I gave them my phone, and then
Mr. Jones, you need to answer the question.
No,
Did you know this happened?
no, I didn't know this happened. But I mean, I told you I gave them the phone over.
Just
And
answer
you
the
said,
question.
you said in your deposition, you searched your phone. You said you pulled down the text, did the search function.
All right, well, I'm going to end it there, but I do want to say this, and it deals directly with Avery Neal's question here, or his statement, their statement. Wait till the J6 committee gets the texts. And this is exactly the thought that we had yesterday while watching the trial live, on a short delay, but live, that if there were 2 years, the past 2 years of text messages that were revealed to the attorney, the Sandy Hook parents' attorneys, they don't have any obligation. There's no attorney-client privilege between opposing counsel and the defendant. None. So that is exactly what they need to do. And in fact, that is what's happening. Because remember, this was Alex Jones on or about right around the time within the 5th to the 6th, talking about the insurrection and what the White House asked him to do related to the January 6th insurrection and leading the mob prior to Donald Trump's speech ending, 30 minutes prior, to lead the mob to the Capitol. Remember this moment.
The White House told me 3 days before, we're going to have you lead the march. The Secret Service, before Trump finishes 30 minutes before, so will lead you to a point, take you out of the front row, and lead you to the place where they want you to start the march, and Trump will tell people, go and I'm going to meet you at the Capitol.
Yeah. So there are going to be a treasure trove of messages mixed in to all of his Sandy Hook atrocities that he's committed against these families, but also the insurrection. There's going to be information for both the January 6th Select Committee, but also the Department of Justice that needs to get a hold of these messages that will then spur investigations off into many different directions, depending upon who Alex Jones was in communication with, whether that be actual White House officials or surrogates of the Trump campaign or just people close to Donald Trump's orbit. This is an amazing moment, in the January 6th investigation, in the Department of Justice's criminal probe into these matters. It's just fantastic. And let me tell you, I'm thankful today that the right can't seem to get decent lawyers. They just get these clowns who don't do their jobs well. David Wagner, thank you so much. I appreciate it. John Longshore, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Arizona Sunflower, yes. Valerie Watkins, Jesse, you are quite welcome. I have been a member now for 3 years. Wow, that might be as long as I've had the channel membership thing turned on. I appreciate all you do. Well, I appreciate you, Valerie. It means a lot that there is a community that's built up around my YouTube program that feels passionate enough about the work that I do and trusts in me to be a truth teller that they would give of their money. It is beyond anything I could have ever dreamed would take place. So thank you so much. I genuinely say thank you. Austin Wade, Yukon Cornelius coming at you live. Yeah, that is. I'm a little taller than Yukon Cornelius, I believe. I have larger legs. I'm not as much of a grapefruit on toothpicks like Yukon Cornelius, but you know, it's an apt comparison. One that I make myself, by the way. Yo, Jesse. Yo, Ben. Again, from Valerie. Jesse, what do you think of the 9-year prison sentence that U.S. basketball player received today in Russia? Yeah, Brittney Griner got 9 years in prison, sentenced for drug charges in Russia. Obviously, it is a farce. Obviously, they're going to try to use that as a bargaining tool or as just nationalistic propaganda for Russia, for Vladimir Putin. We have offered a prisoner exchange. I don't know what the status of that is. The State Department usually almost always keeps those matters tight to the vest and negotiates with the foreign entity on it. I really hope that we get her back, because it is a remarkable human rights abuse to get 9 years in prison for something so benign. And she's an American treasure, an amazing athlete who has represented every single team for which she's played, represented them well. Rainbow Warrior says, hey, Jesse, what's your view on the Taiwan issue? Would Joe Biden can do for make China de-escalate the tensions all over the island and not make the situation worse? Well, what could Joe Biden do to make China de-escalate? Well, the only thing that we could do to make China de-escalate would be to agree wholeheartedly with the one China policy, would be to recognize Taiwan as just mainland China. I think that's a mistake. However, I'm not a diplomat, and the way that I would do it probably would garner escalation of military conflict and economic conflict between the two nations. I believe Taiwan has a right to autonomy and self-governance, to be their own people with their own culture and their own national identity. I don't believe in the one China policy. China is not one giant monolith, and it never has been. And they are listen, as much of a human rights abuser as America has been in the past and probably will continue to be, because we have terrible leaders and we selfish interests. China is doing right now to the Uyghurs in Xinjiang, I believe is how it's said, and it needs to be addressed. The world community, the individual disparate nations on the planet need to band together, whether it be the UN or some other organization that actually does good work, and demand that China end the re-education camps and the genocide that's taking place among the Uyghur people, because they're not as homogenous as China would like them to be relative to mainland China. And they're a different religion, and they're just different. It's otherizing and punishing people. And well, to say punishment is not doing it justice. It's a human rights abuse. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I hope it did. Justin Richards, hey, Jesse, fellow former Idahoan here. Do you think Democrats will hold on to the House and Senate in November? Everyone seems to have written off any chances of defeating the historical patterns. I think, given very preliminary data that we have right now based on what took place in Kansas, I'm not going to make predictions. I don't know. But I think if Democrats play their cards right, and people like you and people like me and the people we know will actually get involved on the ground in local politics and convince their neighbors and their family and their friends and their coworkers and randos that they meet in the vegetable aisle at their grocery store to vote, to get involved, we can turn this around. Just with Democrat voters in Harris County, Texas, where Houston is, there's enough Democrats just in Harris County to turn the entire state blue. But it takes involvement. And hopefully, as horrible as a decision and an outcome that the reversal of Roe was, if there's any silver lining to it at all, it's that people wake the F up and turn on to the reality of what the Republican Party is trying to do and stave off that through their vote and their activism. That's the only thing I can hope. I'm not going to make a prediction because it's too early to tell, but I can tell you what I hope for. Thanks for the question, Justin. David Mesa, Bernie Raskin 2024, what do you think? I think Bernie's too old. I think Joe Biden's too old. I'll probably piss a lot of people off. I think they're too old. There's a saying that, the noble, I'm going to completely botch it. I'm going to paraphrase a saying as I tap my mic. The charitable man, the selfless man plants trees that he has no desire or ability to lay in the shade of when they grow old, because he'll be dead. And we need people who are going to be here in 10 years to continue the fight for climate change. We need a younger generation of people. Not just that, but there are all kinds of other ramifications that come along with being older. You know, if you've watched Joe Biden, that he's a little slow in the step. I don't think he's caught in cognitive decline. I don't think he's senile. I don't think he's got Alzheimer's. I don't think he shakes hands with invisible people. All that is subterfuge from the right. All of it. Every single bit of it. But he is 78 or 79 years old now. Isn't that right? He's almost 80 years old. Same with Bernie. So I for me, would want a younger generation, not out of ageism, but out of utility and out of what the things that we can get done moving forward. We don't want someone who can only really serve one term. We need people who can do the work for the long term. And Jamie Raskin isn't out of that window. I think he's fantastic. He's a progressive. I don't know if he has national ambition, though. Thanks for the question, David. GQ, or I don't know how I would say that if that's the last name, I apologize. Did advocates lose some traction by focusing on abortion and not on privacy, healthcare, right to choose, basically covering the big picture instead of just one issue? Well, I don't know that it would matter what advocates focus on where it relates to the decision, because that decision held for 50 years, from 1973 until 2022, 49 and change it held. So the logic was sound. The legal opinion was sound. So it shouldn't matter what advocates or activists are focusing on, because Samuel Alito is going to do what Samuel Alito is going to do, no matter what activists do. The same goes for Amy Coney Barrett. The same goes for Brett Kavanaugh. The same goes for Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch. These people are fascists who want to fundamentally, structurally change the country from what we are and have been and are growing into, aspirationally, into something that our grandparents had, which if you're a white man, that's a pretty fantastic life. But if you're somebody who cares about human rights and equal rights and gender and racial equality, it's not a good time. And this is why I am an active and loud proponent of packing the court. And I don't just mean move it from 9 to 11. I think we should move it from 9 to 13 to 15, maybe 17 members on the Supreme Court, and stave off any. They're not going to make a 42-member Supreme Court. I think we should pack the court. Thanks for the question. Julia Gulia. Hi, Jesse. First of all, I absolutely love the way you laugh when talking about dum-dums like Gates, Greens, and Boebert. I laugh out loud with you. Well, that's good. Question: Do you think they actually believe their own lies? Wow, this is a question I ask myself a lot. This is a question that I pose to myself all the time. Like every video that comes out with Lauren Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz, I think about, are they really buying this? Matt Gaetz, I don't think so. I think he's a more conniving political operator because he was raised in politics. His father was either the Senate Majority Leader or the Speaker of the House in Florida in the state legislature. So he's been around politics his entire life. He's craven. He's a craven political operator. Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene are both on the sliding scale, like it's sliding into the shallow end of the gene pool of their cognitive ability. They're both dum-dums. I really believe they're stupid people. They don't understand basic things. They don't have a fundamental knowledge of civics or American history, certainly not world history. So yeah, I think very well they could believe the things that they say, especially because it's based out of ignorance and a lack of fundamental understanding of basic concepts. I hope that answers your question. Jamie Pierce. Do you think an atheist will ever be president of the United States? Also, how can we get more scientists or knowledgeable people into power? Wow. This is what happens when you get impromptu questions. Yeah, I think a nun, an N-O-N-E, a non-believer will eventually be president of the United States. We are seeing a kind of a natural decline relative to religious engagement or involvement, passion for people as time goes on. I don't think there's anything wrong with being, I don't think there's anything wrong with being religious or being an atheist. I don't at all. I don't think that as long as you're not basing the things that you want to do governmentally on your particular religion, as long as you're adhering to the Constitution and for the rule of law, there is no qualification under the Constitution. So yeah, eventually it will happen. And then the second part of the question, how can we get more scientists or knowledgeable people into power? Recruitment, getting them involved. The problem is now is that we do have a lot of scientists in office. We have people who are doctors in the Senate right now who are bad people. Bill Cassidy from Louisiana is a physician, and he's a POS. Rand Paul is an ophthalmologist, not an optometrist, but an eye surgeon. He's in the Senate. His dad was a general practitioner, an MD, Ron Paul. And he also held pernicious, racist, terrible beliefs. So it's not about, I think, gearing to scientists or necessarily knowledgeable people, because Ted Cruz is a knowledgeable person. He was roundly understood as a star pupil at Harvard Law School. We need to have people with good hearts and a good understanding and a boatload of empathy for their fellow humans. Great question, though. Everett Watson became a YouTube channel member. I love it. Michael Leone, $10 super chat. That's awesome. Cindy D. What about AOC and Porter 2024? We need a woman president in this climate. Yeah, we're long overdue for a woman president. I love both of those representatives. They're fantastic. Katie Porter is actually my former congresswoman. We lived in her district in Southern California. So I have an affinity for Katie Porter, former law professor at University of California, Irvine. And AOC, of course, everyone knows AOC. I would be happy with any kind of a ticket. The problem with putting forward a ticket up front is that's not how our politics works. One or both of these ladies would have to run for office, and then just because of political egos, Kamala Harris didn't run for vice president. She ran for president, and then it didn't work out for her, and she was picked by Joe Biden. So I am down for absolutely. I mean, I was an Elizabeth Warren supporter in 2020 early on. And I'm all on board for a progressive female president, without a doubt, without exception. Carrie, my earpiece is tightening up here. What happened with the release of Trump's taxes? Did it give away with the arrival of Bragg? So Bragg's, that particular DA, Cyrus Vance Jr. was the DA of in Manhattan. And Alvin Bragg, I believe his name is, he took over and he slowed the investigation. And then there was word that it was canceled. And then there was word, oh, no, we're just reorganizing. I don't know where it stands right now. But the release of the taxes was, I believe, a Southern District of New York. It was a U.S. attorney issue. And the release of the taxes was a congressional item that was working its way through the Ways and Means Committee. So I don't know where that is right now. I don't know. That's something to look into. Great question. Cindy D, thank you, Jesse. Love your show for the past 2 years. Right on. Megan Ferraro, thank you for the super chat very much. Can't wait to move back to Arizona and make Sinema lose her primary. Get us 2 Democratic senators that will actually work for Arizona and the country. Yeah, Kyrsten Sinema is a perplexing individual, and I hope just a blip on the radar relative to American history. Someone who was a Green Party person, someone who purports themselves to be the most progressive, a progressive's progressive, and then doing everything in their power to scuttle the agenda of the current sitting Democratic president of the United States. It is beyond. The only thing that I can glean from it is corruption. The only thing that I can determine is the cause of it is undue influence of big money in politics, and that she has taken the bait, and that she is now beholden to whether it be crypto executives when she's trying to carve out tax incentives for them, or investment bankers. It's bizarre. So yeah, absolutely. If you are moving back to Arizona, get on the ground with Democratic politics, get involved with your local precinct politics, and go door knocking, canvass, get involved, get organized. Don't just say, oh yeah, I'll do that next week. Get on the ground immediately and get involved. It's very important, and it will make a big, big difference. Tony Crane. Hey, Jesse, love the channel, and thank you for speaking the truth. What's your thoughts about AG Garland bringing charges against the current and former Louisville officers in the death of Breonna Taylor? Yeah, so today, 4 officers who were involved in the shooting of Breonna Taylor were arrested by the FBI, and they're going to be charged with civil rights crimes. Some of them are going to be charged with the usurpation of her civil rights. I don't know exactly what the language is. And then others are going to be charged with conspiracy for that to happen in the providing of false affidavits to secure a search warrant. So all of this is no good. There are federal charges up and down the line for these 4 clowns who killed an innocent woman. So I'm, well, what are my thoughts? My thoughts are, yes, finally. I mean, how long ago did that happen? And here we're just now getting around to it. If you watch the channel at all for any time at all, you know my feelings about Merrick Garland and the glacial pace at which he works, knowing that he only has so much time left in his position. Anyway, great question, and I hope they get what's coming to them, which is many, many years behind bars. I'm very much not going to do well with this name. I apologize. Sunil Matwani, thanks for the super chat very much. Thoughts on GOP heroes, i.e. Alyssa Farah, Pence, Liz Cheney, et cetera, et cetera. Is it all just political calculation and financial incentive? So I'm not a fan of Liz Cheney. I think she's doing good things right now, but she is at her heart a fascist who wants to drag our country back. She is anti-abortion. She is anti-gay rights. She's bad news, for sure. Now, I think she stands apart from those other, well, maybe Pence is in that group with her too, that they did the right thing because they had no other choice. Pence, I think he knew he had no other choice and he wasn't going to go down in history because a lot of times when you get to this level, you're thinking about your legacy. And Pence knew what it would be for him. Liz Cheney, maybe she's thinking about legacy. I don't know. But this first person that you're talking about, Alyssa Farah, she is now a CNN political contributor. She was in the comms department of Trump White House, I think. Maybe she worked for Pence. I don't know. I'm not going to speak if I don't know. But there are a litany of individuals. Stephanie Grisham is another one. Someone from Arizona who was Donald Trump's press secretary for a time. I believe there is a certain level of former assistant or aide or advisor to Donald Trump, employee of the administration, who is now against him because that's what's fashionable. And they see the writing on the wall and they know that it's done for them. So I would set Pence and Liz Cheney apart from the gaggle of goofballs. I still don't think they're great, but they're doing the right thing on this one issue. I hope that answers the question. And thank you for the super chat very much. Eric Andajar became a YouTube channel member. I was waiting for a question. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate you. Scott Jensen. Do you think it's possible Trump has already granted himself a pocket pardon? If so, will it hold up? No and no. I don't believe that he has granted himself a pardon. I think that's more like, remember during Donald Trump's administration, the 25th Amendment kept coming up over and over and over. And it was just like, that's never going to happen. That's not a thing that's going to happen. I believe the pocket pardon talk is kind of along the same lines. And I am not a legal scholar. I am not a legal expert. I am just an observer of politics and someone who's been involved in the system from time to time over the years. I don't believe it would hold up. Even if it were a thing, I don't believe it would hold up. Great question, though, Scott. Darren Gross with a super chat of $10. Thank you so much, Darren. And beautiful husky. I was at the NRA protest in Houston. Why do people cry over guns and not children? This is a cultural issue in our country. Uniquely in our country. Having grown up in northern Idaho, where gun culture is a thing and the Second Amendment is talked about all the time, the right to bear arms shall not be infringed, even though they forget about a well-regulated militia necessary for the security of a free state, all this. They forget about all that. There's just all the shall not be infringed part they remember. But gun culture really became a thing, I want to say late 70s, early 80s, right when Ronald Reagan was coming on the scene. where it was Bible was equated to the Second Amendment, which was equated to the flag, and everything just got melded and intertwined. So people are convinced to believe insane things when it's said over and over and over and again, and it becomes ingrained like a mantra, like a cult mentality. And that is what has happened with the NRA, with gun culture in America, that it is more important that someone be able to own a weapon of war, and don't kid yourself, an AR-15. AR does not stand for assault rifle. It stands for Armalite rifle. It's a company that developed that weapon. The AR-15 is essentially indistinguishable, other than like 3 or 4 functions from the M16 that I used in the Marine Corps. It's a weapon of war. And if anyone says otherwise, they're a liar and they're disingenuous. So it only, in my estimation, has to be this cult mentality that has been just foisted upon us in America, that they don't care about dozens and dozens and dozens of children's deaths. They don't care about dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of deaths and injuries in Las Vegas, as long as they get to carry their weapons of war into the subway while they get their sandwich made. I don't get it. It's a good question. I wish someone had the answer to, Darren. Roger Morris became a YouTube channel member. God, that's awesome. This will be like the biggest day, I think. Super sticker from Lisa, $5. That is great. And Demetrius Bernard also became a YouTube channel member. Man, I tell you what, I think I need to do live streams more often. I know this is random, but how is your daughter? My daughter is doing well. My daughter, for those of you who don't know, if you weren't around a couple of years ago when I moved from Orange County to Washington State to be with her for a few months while she went through chemotherapy, she was suffering from a condition called hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis. I know, it's a lot. But she is well. She has recovered. She has to keep going back for scans and checks to make sure that the disease does not come back. But as a result of the chemo, she actually did just have a hip replacement a few months ago at 19, which is terrible. But she's alive and she's well and she's thriving. And I'm sure she appreciates you being concerned. Thank you very much. Greg Johnson, another channel member. That is, we need like a horn or a sound effect or something. How are you liking your new home? Z Schneider. We are enjoying it a lot. I've never lived in a city, like in an urban city environment. It's always been suburbs. And even when I lived here before, I didn't live in the city. I lived in Northern Virginia. And it's great, like getting to walk to places to eat and walk into the grocery store. We very rarely drive the car, which is great. It's just a different change of pace, different challenges. Certainly, it's not everything we thought it would be, but all in all, we're very happy. And thanks for asking. Jerry Heichel, $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Jerry. Thoughts why extreme religious people, evangelical Christians, but also other fundamentalists of other religions are so devoid of critical thinking? Is it the cause or the glue of these delusions? Again, I love the tough questions. They're great, but they're difficult to answer because I don't know. What am I, an authority on this? I know for me, when you start believing literally the words of the Bible, when scholars, people who have dedicated their entire lives and educations to the study of that document, those disparate documents that were compiled into the Bible, the 66 books of the Bible, what we know of the Bible today, leaving out several other sources and documents. They didn't put those in. They chose these certain ones. When you start believing those words to be literal, you suspend reason and rationality. When you believe that Noah had dinosaurs on the ark, you can't be expected to hold to rationality in other parts of your life. You're not gonna. There's a saying in the law, it's falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus. And it means if you're false in one thing, you could be reliable to be false on other things. If you lie about one thing, your entire testimony can be discounted because you're known to be a liar. It's kind of the same thing with this. If you believe fantastical things about this particular issue, it's reasonable to assume that you're also going to believe fantastical things about other things. So I don't know if it's a devoid of critical thinking or just belief in conspiracies. That would be my take off the cuff. I'd have to give it more thought to give you a more heady answer, but I hope that's good enough. I appreciate the super chat, Jerry. Jenks Box, do you think Andrew Yang's centrist party will have any impact? No. If anything, it's just going to rally the troops around the Democratic Party. I mean, he may, like, I think Andrew Yang had his moment to have be an impact on American society, and I think he blew it. I think he blew it when he welcomed everyone into the party, regardless of their views on race. I think he blew it when he leaned into stereotypes. So I'm Asian, so I'm good at math. Every time he opened his mouth. I'm not a fan of Andrew Yang. I don't know if you could tell. But no, I don't think it's going to have any lasting impact whatsoever on the American system. But I'd love to know what you think about that. My earpiece here. The GOP started the first Civil War. The GOP tried to start the second one on January 6th. The GOP is staging itself to literally take over America. You're not going to like living in an imperialistic fascist reality. Thank you for the super chat, first of all, humorous. The GOP started the first Civil War. That, I believe, is just empirically false, that the Republican Party started the first Civil War. The Republican Party was the party of Lincoln. So if you believe Lincoln started the Civil War, the first shots that were fired were not from the Union. They were from the South. But they are absolutely fomenting a civil war or some kind of strife or secession talk right now, absolutely, without a doubt. And I don't know if you're being snarky, but you're not going to like live in an imperialistic fascist reality. No, we're not. It's going to be terrible. And I hope that we have what it takes to sustain and to overcome the onslaught of what will likely be political violence into the future, because Michigan and some of the state capitals that we witnessed during COVID were the first run at insurrection. The January 6th insurrection was the second run, and they are slowly but surely learning from their mistakes operationally. And unless we get our shit together, they're going to get it perfected and they're going to succeed. Thank you for the super chat. I hope you don't mind that I disagree about shit, because that's what I do. Stephanie Rocher. Jesse, what are your thoughts on 45 announcing a presidential run and how it could affect the DOJ announcing a criminal indictment against 45? X 45. Thank you for that. That's what I like. I think the earlier he announces, the better for strategery sake, to pull a George W. Bush word, or probably a Will Ferrell making fun of him word. For strategic reasons politically, I think it would be great the earlier the better, because then the race would become about Trump and not about other issues. Then the race could really become about Donald Trump and what he looked to do when he installed 3 separate fascist court jurists, 3 justices on the Supreme Court, who single-handedly reversed 50 years of court precedent and stripped away women's autonomy, bodily autonomy, of reproductive health care. We could really make it about that we could hone in on one single thing, the economy would evaporate relative to importance. And how would I think it would affect the DOJ? If I'm taking Merrick Garland at his word, I don't think it would affect. I think that they're going to go ahead with, I'm believing Merrick Garland when he says they're going to go as high as it needs to go. No one is immune. Everyone is accountable. I'm going to take him at his word because I have no other choice but to. So I hope that answers your question. Mr. Black 530, $10 super chat. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Thank you for what you do. Keep it up. I missed the last part. What was it? Do you remember what it was? Sorry, it went away. Tommy Hagar, or Hagar, I don't know. Jesse, have you considered running for public office, perhaps a governor or senator? When I was a younger man, it was something I talked about a lot. I don't know. Maybe if I get a little older and a little time on my hands, I will consider that. But right now, I'm very happy doing what I'm doing. And I think that I have an impact. Look, I don't have the largest channel, 360,000 subs or something like that. But with the audience that I do have and the impact and the reach that I do have, I feel like I'm proud of the difference that I make. And I'm content right now. I appreciate even the thought that my name would be bandied about with the words governor or senator. So thank you, Tommy. Robert R. Do you think Trump will be reelected and pardon himself and friends before courts can touch them in the USA? Well, with a presidential pardon, one, I don't believe a president can pardon themselves. And it wouldn't matter if a court were to if he would do it before a court could touch a defendant. Because remember, a court touched Paul Manafort, a court touched Roger Stone, and they both have been recipients of presidential pardons. So it doesn't matter whether a court gets to them first. A presidential or gubernatorial pardon just erases all of that. But again, I don't think that a president can pardon themselves. And I think there's a lot of legal scholars and constitutional experts who would agree with me. Ronnie Scar. That I don't know. I think that's the kroner from the Netherlands. Correct me if I'm wrong. Put that in the chat if I'm right about where you're from and what currency that is. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Oh, he says right there, Norway. Dum-dum. Dear Jesse, here in Norway, Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Alex Jones wouldn't have a chance. Is this a crisis in your education system? No, I don't think it's a crisis in our education system. I think it's a crisis of our politics, of allowing money to pervert our politics. And I think it's a crisis of culture. It's a crisis of the commingling of religion and politics and a perverted obsession with guns like we talked about earlier. That's what I think it is. I don't think it has to do with our public schools, which clearly our education system needs a revamping and needs a retooling. But I think that it's more cultural than anything. It's also a love affair with ignorance that the Republican Party has, and a propping up of the poorly educated, and jettisoning any respect or reverence for knowledge and expertise. Yeah. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it, Ronnie. Hope I got the currency right, that it's a kroner, I think is what it is. WGOOETRIK, WGooetrick. $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. What do you think about Orban highlighting CPAC? Bet the smooth-brained, googly-eyed feather duster is loving it. Keep up the great work. Well, this particular commenter is referring to Tucker Carlson, the smooth-brained, googly-eyed feather duster himself. Tucker Carlson, the host of the nightly white supremacy fireside chat on Fox News. And he's speaking about Viktor Orban, who is the leader of Hungary. who is an authoritarian leader, a racist authoritarian leader who has railed against interracial marriages, and he's the worst of the worst. He was Trump before Trump was Trump. I'm sure that Tucker Carlson is beside himself. I think that it is, in some measure, I don't know, large measure, but some measure, the work that Tucker Carlson has done as a PR operative for Viktor Orban. So it's terrible. Thanks for the question. Thanks for being interested in that kind of thing. It's fantastic. Dazzler Foo became a channel member. That's great. Seriously. Thanks everybody who became a channel member during this live stream. We've been going for 1 hour and 7 minutes and 33 seconds right now. And there's been so many. I am humbled and it sounds dumb, humbled and honored, but really I'm beside myself. It's making me emotional. Ed Green, Jesse, what are your thoughts on Ron DeSantis likely being reelected here in Florida? And do you think his authoritarian policies will elevate him to the presidency? Well, I'm not going to make everybody like how I drink water. Everyone teases me about it. I'm not going to make predictions about DeSantis running for president or being reelected here or there. I think that we're in a flux period right now. Had this been a month ago, I might have made a prediction. But because of what took place Tuesday in Kansas, relative to the constitutional amendment on Roe, I'm gonna hold off on that. But I will say this though, there certainly is a likelihood he will be reelected. The electorate in Florida is so just bananas that it's tough to tell from season to season, from election to election, what will happen. If you'd like Ed for him to have a lesser chance to win, you got to get involved. I know I'm beating the dead horse here. I'm beating a drum of organization and activism. Get in contact with your local Democratic Party and get involved on the ground. Influence your neighbors, your friends, your coworkers. It's not just something I'm saying. It is really something you need to do because it will make a difference. Local party apparatus is in desperate need of bodies to make a difference. And if you're interested enough to ask the question, I got to think you're interested enough to get involved. And do I think his authoritarian policies will elevate him to the presidency? Yeah, because they're all based around culture war nonsense that there is a swath of the American public that eats it right up. Virginia went from blue to red because of CRT panic, which is absolute bullshit. So it's a tough time. Get involved. Becky Becker, do you think someone in the Trump White House requested the deletions of texts from the Secret Service, DHS, and DOD? So this is a great question. I think that it is likely that there was communication, whether that be explicit or implicit, but they definitely communicated, look, we need to protect this day. We need to protect the communications around this day, even if that means deleting, even if that means putting ourselves in legal criminal jeopardy. Because if we find out there was a conspiracy to do this, then there's criminal conspiracy charges which carry with them like 10 years apiece. Which begs the question, if they were willing to face 10 years in jail for deleting them, what information is there that they deleted? What's so bad that they were willing to face criminal charges? That's the question. It's very scary. Thank you, Becky. It's a great question. Julia Gulia, you are correct. The currency in Norway, Sweden, and Denmark is called the kroner. Yes! Look at me with my knowledge that takes me nowhere. The Storm Virgil, Jesse, you need a better water bottle, my dude. No, what do you mean? This is 32 ounces. Where else can you? It's like you can order these on Amazon. This episode brought to you by. It's not, but it's easy. It's just like a takeout thing. I cook with them. I put my onions in them to ingredients, and it's great. Perfect. Jesse, show us the puppy. No, she is sleeping. We have a 6-month-old English bulldog named Sweepy, who is beautiful. There she is. See how is your puppy Sweepy doing? She is beautiful and fantastic, and she is asleep, which means she is not being a rambunctious terrorist dog, and that is the way we like it. But if you would like to see Sweepy, you can go to my Instagram page. Look at this, a natural segue to plug my stupid social media. You can go to Instagram.com/Dollemore. I guess you don't need the web address for it, just @Dollemore. I am South Texas Shark. Thank you for this super chat. I overlooked that the first time. I am @Dollemore on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. We're having a good time. Instagram is changing. It's really become more of a video platform. So we are kind of reorganizing what we're going to be on Instagram. And I would love, absolutely love for you to join me there. And on Twitter, here, let's do this. Look, I got all the equipment right in front of me. You can just do this. And I Doubt It Podcast. You can go to @I Doubt It Podcast on Instagram and on Twitter and follow us there. We give a lot of headlines. We obviously post shows that we do there. Twice a week, just off to your right, my left. There's a podcast studio there where we record 2 episodes a week, talking about the headlines. We talk a little bit about our lives in the intro of the show. And it is a fantastic time. I am, as you know, who I am and what I am. But my co-host, Brittney Page, is fantastic. She's got a Master's of Science in Clinical Psychology. She is smart she is smart. I see I dropped the F-bomb. When we start talking about the podcast, I just fly into cretin mode. But it's a good time, and you should really check it out unless, good times aren't your thing. So I will quit plugging it. Let me turn off the share. Darren Gross, another super chat from Darren Gross with his beautiful blonde husky. There's probably actually a name for that color of husky. Conservatives call themselves pro-life. When was the last time they tried abolishing capital punishment? Oh, wait, they never have. Hypocrites. Yeah, that's a fact. I am also not a proponent of the death penalty. Even when I was a Republican, I wasn't a proponent of the death penalty because I don't believe the state should have that much power over the life of a human. And I still hold to that, even as a Democrat, even as a progressive, a liberal. I believe that the state should be curtailed in its power against our liberties. And what greater liberty is there than to continue to be alive? So I'm with you, Darren, you and me. We're in agreement on that. Thank you so much for the super chat. Chad Purcell? It can't be Perkle. It's got to be Purcell. Chad Purcell. F-bombs are the best part. Yeah, they are. Fuck yeah, they are. Cookie Fatty 666. I believe this is, I'm not going to say your name, but this is a Brit who goes under a different name sometimes with a super chat that's fantastic, with another fantastic military question, I think. I'm just looking at keywords. Mr. Dollemore, give your experience with armor in the American Amphibious Assault Association. Given your experience, what would you say that Stacey Abrams is to Georgia's Republican Party, what the M1 Abrams was to Saddam Hussein's Republican Guard? Well, coincidentally enough, my first unit in the United States Marine Corps was 2nd Tank Battalion. And I have ridden in an M1A1 Abrams. And when I first got to that unit, I could see people clicking off everywhere as I talk. Very briefly, I got to my unit and they were telling stories about the original Iraq War where one of our tanks was stuck in the sand and a platoon of tanks, Iraqi tanks, came out over the hill. They thought they were goners, and the Iraqi tanks went down into the ravine and pushed out the Marine tank, freeing it from its being stuck. And then they all got out of their tanks and surrendered. I wish it would be that easy for Stacey Abrams. I do not think it will be, but I do think she absolutely has a chance to, especially with what took place in Kansas and with the Roe overruling, I think she has a chance to become the governor of the state of Georgia. And especially with someone, the dum-dum, Herschel Walker on the ticket, it makes it just that much easier. And if you're in Georgia, again, get involved, get everybody you know, rally the troops, get them down there to vote, because it's going to take everything in the face of the draconian voter suppression tactics of Georgia Republicans to win. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it very much. Go back to the cuckoo for coffee. JD, what are your thoughts on Ginni Thomas? Would she pay any consequence for being involved in the coup attempt? She should. Will she? I don't know. And the reason I say I don't know and I'm so doubtful of it is the fact that she is so ensconced in the political muck of Washington, her husband being a Supreme Court justice and her being as ensconced in the mire as she is. I hope that if something is uncovered that is criminal, that she will be pursued. And if the Department of Justice is laying out a case even 3/4 as strong as the House Select Committee has, there's really no choice but to believe what is taking place. And I believe some, not all, but some of the people who believe that Donald Trump won the election, I believe there will be a percentage of those people who kind of evaporate off of that pile and come back to earth. So I can only say I hope, but I have no idea. Scott Jensen with the super chat, $5. Thank you, Scott. Jesse, what about Dems' support for fringe right-wingers they believe will be easier to beat? Also, when are you going to admit doors are the real problem? Well, let me say this about this is a question I've struggled with this last week. The DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, they are funding the campaigns, propping up the candidacies of election deniers because they believe if they win the primary, they'll be easier to beat. The actual Democratic candidate will be easier to win over that election denier. And originally I thought, well, that's kind of a good strategy. I don't know really what I think about it. And then I came to the conclusion that I do not agree with it because it involves giving money to someone who is anti-democratic. And that is too important a risk to gamble with. That is too important an outcome to mess around with when you're not certain of what the outcome will be. Anything can happen between now and the general election. And if you're pouring money in and you're propping up someone who is actively working against our democracy, that's a problem. And I think Democrats need to check themselves, those who are in power and actually funneling the money downstream. And also mainline regular Democrats like me who just leave it up to the party to do what it will. I think it's bad news. And I thought about it quite a bit. So it's a great question. And I'd love to know what all of you guys think about that particular issue. 657, well, that's the podcast number. 714-576-4054, or you can email me daily at dollemore.com. Another question from, not going to botch it. Thank you for the super chat. I don't know how to pronounce my name either. Could you give drinking lessons to Trump? Hit the like button, people. Jesse's uploads, and I click. Oh, yeah. So Donald Trump, if you're watching, I'm sure Donald Trump is watching. This is not how you drink, or is this how he does it? Oh. It's just one hand. It's just a few ounces of water. And if you're the big manly man that all Republicans believe you to be, you should be able to hoist a 16-ounce bottle of water with one arm. I mean, children can do it. Regina Hance, how about Senator Cory Booker for president? I love Cory Booker. I loved him when he ran for president. I think he was fantastic. I know a lot of progressives gave him some shit relative to his support for pharmaceutical companies that were doing work in Trenton. But I'm a Cory Booker acolyte. I love the guy. I think he's fantastic, and I would support his candidacy depending on who else is in the race. I mean, he was in the race with Elizabeth Warren, and she was the one that I supported. But this next race, it's anybody's. It's a new slate of candidates with a whole new set of parameters to think about relative to age and everything else, and where we're going and who the Republicans are running. So I would certainly consider him. Absolutely. Tommy Hagar. Jesse, are you a Joe Rogan fan? He has some very interesting guests that have opened my eyes to many controversial topics. No, Tommy, I am not. In fact, I am the antithesis of a Joe Rogan fan. I think he's dangerous for our democracy. I think he's dangerous for our culture. I think Joe Rogan is an apologist for, I don't think this. Joe Rogan is an apologist for Alex Jones. Joe Rogan is now endorsing Ron DeSantis for president in 2024. Ron DeSantis is a human rights abuser. He is anti-gay. He is anti-LGBTQ all down the line. He is anti-trans. He is anti-black folks. His CRT bullshit, all of that. Pick one of those things, and that's a disqualifier. So Joe Rogan, no. Nope. I think he's a bad guy who has interesting guests on his show. Tom Heinrichs, how much time needs to pass before you will accept that no one else will be held accountable for January 6th? Well, I guess we'll wait and see. I am not without hope. And I'm not without hope. It's not blind hope or faith. I am witnessing what's taking place, and there is a sea change happening. And I think there will be people held accountable. We will see. I am still, the jury is still out, so to speak, relative to how much consequence will befall Donald Trump, but there will be consequences. I don't guarantee it because I don't have a crystal ball and I'm not in that business. But you and I guess, I'll just answer your question as asked. How much more time? I don't know how much, but more time. Thank you for the question, Tom. Old Soul, $5 super sticker. Thank you. Thank you so much. RC from the NYC with a $20 super chat. Thank you so much. And also a channel member. That little disc, I think, is channel member. Good day, Jesse. Thank you for your service and leadership, both in and out of uniform. Your insight and opinions are valued greatly. And don't let the haters hold you back. And from a Navy CB vet, hoorah, Marine. Well, thank you for your service. I didn't serve directly with any CBs. The Marine Corps has combat engineers, so it's kind of the same thing, I believe. And the most Navy I served with were obviously FMF corpsmen. So I appreciate you. Do you think Clarence Thomas should step down because of his wife? No. I think Clarence Thomas should step down because of himself. I think Clarence Thomas should step down because of covering for his wife. Clarence Thomas was the only dissenting vote that came before the Supreme Court relative to what materials Donald Trump should turn over to the January 6th committee. He's the only one who voted Donald Trump didn't have to turn anything over. And in those materials that were asked to be turned over would have been communications from his wife. It is a conflict of interest, is unethical, and he should step down. He should recuse himself, at the very least, from any decision that comes down relative to the insurrection. Absolutely. But yeah, he needs to be gone. And if Democrats had the bandwidth, they should impeach him. There's far enough evidence to begin impeachment proceedings. The unfortunate thing is we have the Senate that we have. So, John Trott. Hey, Jesse, do you miss Sidecar donuts yet? We lived pretty close. Brittney. Obviously, Brittney is picking the questions here.
I miss it.
Brittney misses it a lot. I'm not a big sweets guy. Every once in a while I get a sweet tooth, but it's more like eating some Mike and Ike's or something. Sidecar Donuts, for those of you who don't know, which is probably most of you, the vast majority of you, is like a place that sells like $5 donuts, but they're like super artisanal. And like they've got a Huckleberry one, and every Friday is like donut of the week, or every month anyway, it's fancy ass bullshit that's in Orange County, California. Thank you for the question. Chris Geyser, $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Chris. Any thoughts on ban? I thought you were saying brainwashing. I need a glass of water for my eyes. Any thoughts on banishing traitors from the U.S. and confiscating their blood money and properties? I don't know that is a prescription that we could, like, who are we going to put, where are we going to put them? Where would you send them? I think that we have a set of laws and rules and regulations already under color of law that we can draw from and put them in prison and make them earn the right to be free again. So I don't know that I agree with that. Or if I have any thoughts, it's that I don't think it's a great idea. Good Karma, $4.99 super sticker. Thank you so much. Well, my voice is going. That's why I'm already halfway through my water now. And we've gone almost an hour and a half. So I'm gonna end it by saying this. I love you guys. I appreciate you. This desk is going to serve as both a platform for more of these live streams, but also having my podcast co-host join me at least once a week. We're going to start doing where we cover a couple of topics. It won't be like a bonus show. It'll just be something we'll see. We're going to see how it goes, and we're going to test it out to see how you guys like it. We would love your engagement on it. That would be great. And again, I would encourage you to subscribe to the podcast. I Doubt It podcast. We're on anywhere podcasts are. You can go to dollemore.com, that you can stream it right from there, but also Spotify and Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everywhere that there's podcasts. I love you guys. I appreciate you very much. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being a part of this family, a part of this community. I'll see you next time, and it will be soon. Until then, be genuine. Take care of one another.